Welcome back to the show. I'm Billy,
And I'm Bridget.
and this is Sibling Rivalry Sports. In this episode, we are going to be talking about the Sacramento Kings and their preseason, what we liked and didn't like from what we saw, what we predict their wins and losses will be after 10 games into the season, and then a little added bonus how many wins we think they'll have come the end of the season. Let's get right to it. This preseason, there's not much to say about it, but it was ugly. It was not pretty at all. It was a stinker. 0-5
Yeah.
this preseason.
We started with um the Warriors game one and this bright shining star, DeMar DeRozan, making his entrance as a Sacramento King and shooting 6 for 6, just being lights out for the time that he was on the court. Of course, it was
Yeah,
preseason, so the starters didn't play the whole game, but for the minutes he had, DeRozan delivered and he was incredible, and pretty much preseason went downhill from there.
yeah. There was and this. Although the honest thing though is, even that game, I think that's when they gave up 25 threes. So yeah, that looked good, but the problem was there's still no defense.
Hmm.
Dating back from last year, there's no perimeter defense. And for a coach that's supposed to be known for his defense, these last 2 years have, well, I'm not going to say 2 years because they haven't done much. The season hasn't started yet this year, but last year, their defense was bad.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I mean,
Well, I mean, but there was the uptick when Keon Ellis took over that starting position, and they actually, I think, cracked the top 15
yeah.
in the league for defenses, which,
But
we would love for the
yeah,
Kings to
the,
stay there,
the
but
main
that's
thing with
definitely not
that,
what we saw carry into
yeah,
preseason
the
this
main
year.
thing with that, though, is they changed the officiating after the All Star break.
Right.
They allowed people to be a little bit more physical,
Yeah.
which allowed the Kings to get more up and into it. And that was the problem this preseason. They fouled way too much,
Hmm.
like way too much. Like Keon Ellis this last game, in at halftime, he had four or five fouls.
Yeah, I know there was a game Fox got into foul trouble as well.
Yeah. So it's like, are they going to allow them to play physical or not? If they don't,
Hmm.
the Kings are going to struggle with fouls.
Yeah.
And actually, a lot of teams would probably struggle, but the Kings will be allowing way too many free throws, not to mention they suck at free throws. So it may help other teams allow them to get to the free throw line.
Yeah.
But speaking of defense and shooting, I know you said you didn't get to watch the Clippers game, but you heard it. I stopped watching at halftime because that was a game where the starters minus Fox played nearly the entire game, and it wasn't close from the beginning. The
Yeah.
first like 5 minutes, I think they had like 8 turnovers. I was like, what? And they were,
Yeah, the turnovers are egregious.
yeah. And they weren't even, a lot of them were unforced turnovers, like throwing the ball out of bounds. It's like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Their shooting percentage, it was ugly. Uh, their 3 point shooting percentage, 26%. Overall field goal, 34. And while the Clippers, without James Harden, shot 36 from three and 54% overall. It's like you're not going to win any games doing that.
Yeah.
None at all. I mean, the only like bright side, I guess you could say, from that one was Doug McDermott. Just he's not afraid to shoot.
Yeah.
He knows he's there. He's there to shoot. He's catching. He's going to shoot.
Yeah. So, I mean, there were a lot of roster changes in the offseason, that continued even during preseason this year. And so last season, 2023-24, we had very few changes to the roster. The starting lineup was exactly the same as we had with the team that broke the playoff drought. And very few changes even to the bench. And so this season is a different story. We've got DeMar DeRozan, seeing how he's going to fit in on offense. We've got Kevin Huerter, who's been out, was out a lot of, towards the end of the last quarter
Last
23,
season.
24 season. And so Keon Ellis, who had to step into that starting role. With Herter coming back, we have kind of a question mark of what's going to happen in that position and which Kevin Herter we're going to get. How he's going to reintegrate back into the team after being away and being injured for so long. We've got McDermott, we've got, Carter, who will eventually be coming back in.
Like
he may have an
December,
impact on the
February.
season. So a lot more question marks going into this season. And I think, still more question marks probably coming out of preseason because we don't know what we're going to get with the Sacramento Kings right now. Hopefully it's not more of what we've seen in those 5 preseason games.
I mean, like we're saying, the I guess bright side of the preseason is we didn't see Herter, we didn't see Trey Lyles. Neither one of them played, and they're a big part of the team, especially Trey Lyles. He's
coming off the bench,
part of the bench, and he may not score a lot, but he's a stretch 5. He can play 5, and he'll play stretch 5 to where they have to guard him from shooting that 3, which opens up the middle, which opens up layups. And I will say the one thing that I am kind of a little puzzled by was them releasing Boogie Ellis.
Yeah.
That one kind of took me
by surprise. He was making some good shots.
Yeah. And he's young. And they kept some of these other guys on 2-ways that did not look good this preseason.
Yeah.
I think it's what's a Jones? One of the Jones who was on the Stockton team last year, he tore it up in the G League.
Yeah, that was Colby Jones.
No, not Colby Jones.
Oh.
He was our draft pick from last year. But he's like 27, so he's not young.
Yeah.
But, his shot looked bad during this preseason. He had a bunch of turnovers. He hustles, but he's not a shooter. Not a shooter at all.
Okay, yeah. So Mason Jones?
Yeah, Mason Jones. He seems like a good guy.
Yeah. He was kind of the spirit leader on the bench last year.
Yeah. But he's just, I don't think he offers much offensive wise. In the G League, he tore it up. He tore it up in the G League. But there's a big difference between G League and NBA. And he just didn't look like he fit, and it doesn't make sense because I think he's like 27 or something. So you know what you're going to get out of him. Whereas Boogie Ellis, he's still young, and he can shoot.
He's 26. He'll be 27 this year.
Yeah, so it's like
for next year.
He should be quote unquote his prime right now, and he's still just not quite there to where at least Boogie Ellis is young. You can get him in the G League, and he can work his way up. And like I said, he can shoot.
Yeah.
Game if the team's struggling, he's a young guy. He's going to work his butt off to try to get playing time. So that one just kind of surprised a lot of people. And then again, the one thing I've been harping on ever since last offseason, size. They have no size, and they haven't fixed anything with that.
Yeah. I know when they signed McDermott, there was still some talk like, well, they still may be going after Levine. They still may be going after Ingram.
Yeah.
Yeah, but here we are.
Yeah.
Season starts on Thursday. I don't anticipate any major roster changes between now and then. So I think we've got what we've got. And at least heading into this first part of the season, the Kings may struggle to find their rhythm based on what we've seen so far.
And unfortunately, their first 2 games are not like easy games. So they better find their step in very quickly. And as we talked about last year, it kind of got off to somewhat a rough start because they were without Fox first couple.
Yeah, he got injured so early in the season.
Like the 3rd game in, he got hurt. And those couple of those games he missed were not pretty.
That Houston series at the beginning.
That was. I remember the first game was very bad. Like it was so bad. They're like, Fox might come back the second game. It's like, oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think
So,
it just
okay.
kind of varies on how Herder is integrated into the team.
Mhm.
And that two guard is still a big who's starting, who's not. Like, I just, to me, Ellis is good. To me, he's just not tall enough,
Yeah.
unfortunately. He's just, as they say, you can't teach height.
Yeah. And his offense wasn't there during preseason.
No. I think one game he had like 5 points or something. And he needs to have that McDermott like mentality, like I'm open, shoot it. Because in college
Yeah.
or coming out of high school, he was known as a shooter.
Hmm.
But then when he went to Bama, they said, "Oh, you're gonna have to learn how to guard to get on the court." So it turned it into a defensive guy. It's like so he can shoot,
Hmm.
as we saw during summer league.
Yeah.
But it's just he has to have that mentality: catch and shoot. Like, don't be afraid. You have to have that like, no, I'm gonna keep chucking this up. Like
Hmm.
Klay Thompson mentality. Just catch, shoot. Go 0 for 10, guess what? The next one's going in.
I'd love to see that same mentality from Kevin Herter because I think that was he was kind of missing that swagger last season.
Yeah.
His confidence definitely took a hit, and I was preaching all season that we needed to trade him. So we'll see which Kevin Herter shows up this year and how he integrates because it's a different offense now.
Yeah.
We've got a different team.
And
So
it's no longer headband Herder.
right, he's not
It's
going to be wearing the headband this
no.
year.
So we'll see if he looked like, I think we're talking about, got the forearm sweatband now instead. So we'll see if that Herder shows up. And like I said, who knows? I don't even know if anyone knows if he's gonna be able to be playable
Yeah.
on Thursday.
Yeah.
But all right, so talking about Thursday, you can
Yeah.
listen.
Looking forward.
Yeah, or I kind of am, but kind of afraid. Not sure what to expect from this team right now.
Yeah. So we have the schedule. We have the first 10 games. Got the Timberwolves, Lakers, Trailblazers, Jazz, Hawks, Raptors, Heat, Raptors, Clippers, Suns. And out of those 10 games, 5 are at home and 5 are away. So it's going to be a nice kind of sample size between now and November 10th to see kind of where we stand and see if we can find that rhythm.
And then, as we talked about a little bit before, they're going to win some that they should lose some that they should win. We we forgot to look to see how many of those are back to back, because that will be a huge thing. Because the last couple of years they've been pretty bad on back to backs.
That's true.
That second game they get blown out.
We've got 2 back-to-backs.
Only 2.
So yeah, well, Trailblazers Jazz, that's 28th, 29th of October. And then they've got a couple days off and then go into Hawks on November 1st, Raptors November 2nd.
Okay,
So
so those aren't terrible teams to play on back to backs. But the other problem, they tend to, for some reason, teams that are on back to backs, you would think the Kings would have the advantage, but for some reason, when they have a break and the other team comes in on a back to back, they blow the Kings out. It's like what is like? Do they think?
Yeah, last season was puzzling. I think there's no use in trying to make sense of it. It was a disaster and really just puzzling when it comes to their record, their back-to-backs, their inability to close out games when they had the reigning clutch player of the year on their team. And yeah, last season was just
going 0-5 against the Pelicans. Like, how does a team like own you that bad? 0-5. It's like that's. I don't ever want to see the Pelicans again.
So what's your prediction for these first 10 games?
I'm thinking I'll just say 5-5. I don't know which ones they'll lose, which ones they'll win, but sadly, I'm gonna go with 5-5 because they're still figuring it out.
Absolutely. And I think it's not even about who they're playing really with the Kings. It's about how the Kings show up to play.
Yeah.
Because that's what we saw last year is they can beat almost any team out there
Mhm.
if they show up with the right mentality, with the right, mindset, um and they can lose to any
Yeah.
team out there. We saw some horrendous losses to teams that
Yeah.
were terrible
Like
last year.
the Blazers
So
tore them up one game last year. It's like, how are you getting beat this bad? Then they come back and
in
were getting
preseason,
blown out against the Hawks and then came back and won that game. It's like, okay, this is the win. And then a couple of games later, they get blown out. It's like, wait, what?
yeah. So I don't think it depends on who they're playing. I think it depends on the Kings themselves and,
You know,
their
which
winning attitude and how
which
they're
team
gonna show
shows
up.
up?
So yeah, I think 5-5 is honestly for the first 10 games, based on what we saw out of preseason, I would honestly be happy with a
Yeah,
5-5 record after 10 games.
yeah,
Um, 4-6, I wouldn't despair. I would still have some hope that they're figuring it out.
yeah.
Maybe see some things that we can build on. Um, if we go 6-4, then I feel good. Like that's a win for me. So
The final two games of that 10-game stretch kind of scare me. The Clippers and the Suns. Those two are kind of, they better have a winning record going into those two because those two are two tough teams to end on a 10-game streak against. Because, I mean, we saw what the Clippers did to them in a preseason without James Harden. And then the Suns have a pretty good three-headed monster with KD, Booker, and Beal if they're all healthy. But yeah, so we're both predicting about a 5-5. I'll be ecstatic with a 6-4. Like I'll be okay.
yeah,
And then for added
but
bonus,
yeah, I'm not gonna put too much stock, I think, into the first 10 games of the
yeah,
season.
because
Definitely not the first few games,
yeah,
because I really do think they're still working out the bugs and finding their rhythm and um, you know, they've got some big pieces of the puzzle to add back in, including Trey Lyles, who missed preseason.
yeah.
So he may, take a beat to kind of catch back up to
And he
speed of the
missed
game.
the first handful of games last year too in the preseason.
Yeah.
And honestly, we may be lucky that we play the T Wolves so early because they're kind of figuring it out too with their trade that they did before the preseason started. So that'll be an interesting first game. And actually, honestly, I think that's their second game. The T Wolves. They play on Tuesday night.
Okay.
So there's the first game of them playing one the night before. So they're on the second night of a back to back. So we'll see how that goes. Hasn't
Yeah.
fared the last 2 years for the Kings, but maybe this is a new year. All right. And then what's your prediction for wins at the end of the season?
I'm going to say 49.
49, you're going high?
Yeah. We did 47 last year. I mean, it's a tough division and um it's going to be a hard fought season, but I think they're going to do better than last year. I'm going to be a little bit of an optimist here and yeah, I'm going to say 49.
I'm going to be the Debbie Downer, and I'm going to go 44-46.
Ooh.
Just I did not like the preseason at all.
So do you see them going into the play-in series again or?
Yeah, I see you playing if they're lucky. And
I think they'll figure it out. I mean,
problem is the West is tough.
I may
If you
have
don't
to
figure
mute
it,
your text messages these first few games because if they're looking bad, I know what I'm gonna get from you. I'm gonna see this season is trash.
yeah.
I'm not watching it anymore. But I think they'll figure it out. It's a long season. Um,
Yeah, but the problem is the West is tough.
it is
If you
absolutely.
get behind early,
But it was
it's
tough
hard to
last
dig it
year.
out.
It was tough last year, and I would argue that the Kings, of course, we didn't see it in preseason, but I would argue that the Kings are a better team now with
On
a change
paper,
with
they're better.
right.
There's a big difference between paper and actuality.
I've got faith in our talent. I think they're going to figure it out. It may not be in the first 5 games, may not be in the first 10 games, but it's a long season. I think they'll figure it out and get to that.
Let's cross.
I think they'll win at least more games than they did last season. So that's why I'm guessing 49.
Yeah. Well, the problem was they won more games last. I think more games even last year than they did the previous year,
Yep.
and
Went
they
from
ended
third.
up in the play.
Yeah, went from third to the play-in. So
Yeah,
third to
because
ninth.
every team around them got better as well.
Yeah.
And they stayed pat, and they learned the lesson. Yeah, you can't stay pat.
Yeah.
But what do you guys think? Who do you think's closer to the record win wise? Me or her? Let us know down in the comments below. All right, that'll wrap it up. Until next time, light the beam.